The US men's national team training underway in California, and we are just now 4 days away from their opener against Paraguay on Friday. And we are now delighted to welcome in US Soccer CEO JT Batson to talk more about the journey ahead for the Stars and Stripes. JT, thank you so much for being with us. Exciting times ahead. This is the week.
Here we are. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here. Now, a lot of people have been weighing in on this, particularly on this show, as to what success looks like in this tournament for the US men's national team. Are we talking getting out of the group, getting to the quarterfinals, maybe even daring to dream and going to the semis or beyond?
Well, this morning I was in Central Park when Governor Hochul, Mayor Mondami, and President Infantino opened up a soccer pitch right there in Central Park where Governor Hochul promised everyone the U.S. in the final in late July there. So I like her ambition. But what's exciting about soccer in America is it has grown so much. There are tens of millions of Americans who are hardcore soccer fans. And so, for us, the goal is to make them believe, to make them passionate, to get them to bring more of their friends out there, to put on the red, white, and blue, and to know that this is a team that did everything they could to make them proud. And so success for us is when those people are proud, when they believe, and they want to bring more and more along the journey with them.
Yeah, always great to hear. Now, there has been a lot of criticism when it comes to ticket prices, and we know that this is completely out of your control. But what would you say to those fans who are frustrated about this situation?
Well, in 1994, I was in Augusta, Georgia, where I grew up. And, we weren't in a position where we could go to any of those World Cup games. But that was a summer where I fell in love with the sport. I fell in love with our team. This past weekend in Chicago, we had a 94 men's team there for a reunion. And I felt like I was a kid in a candy store there with them. And so there are all sorts of amazing ways that fans all across the country can be part of this summer. We have over 500 soccer forward fests. So think of those as watch parties and play soccer parties in communities all across this country. And so whether you're a fan who's coming to a game or you're in a host city or you're in a small town like I was, this summer is for you. And we want to make sure that you really feel a part of it. And we're doing everything we can to do that.
Let's take a step beyond the summer, if we can, for just a moment. Has the search started for the next head coach of the US men's national team? And what type of profile are US Soccer looking for?
So for all roles at US Soccer, we have a monthly succession planning meeting. So men's coach, women's coach, heck CEO, we're talking through, if in an interim basis or from a replacement basis, who are potential candidates and how do we think about that? And I think more broadly, we've built a great track record over the last few years of being able to attract world-class talent to U.S. Soccer. So, of course, Emma Hayes and Mauricio Pochettino, but also on the business side, as well as folks who are just coming out of college and everything in between, we have great people who want to be at U.S. Soccer. We have very ambitious goals, short, medium, and long term, and it takes world-class people to do that. And so I would expect us to continue to be ambitious with regards to any of the folks we hire at U.S. Soccer, including our coaching staff.
Yeah, and of course that brings us to talk about Matt Crocker, obviously leaving the role of sporting director, and that too being a position that needs to be filled. Is it more important to get that position in place before the new coach comes in?
So one really important thing for anyone who's watching this to know is we have long planned an evolution of our sporting structure. So when I joined almost 4 years ago, to now, we've tripled in revenue, we've tripled in terms of number of people, we've added more national teams, we have more programming, and so naturally our sporting structure should evolve. So no one watching this should expect a like-for-like sporting director going forward. I'd imagine the fact that we now are in a position where we can resource our sporting structure to reflect the fact that the men's ecosystem and the women's ecosystem are different domestically and around the world. We also know that the success of the American soccer pathways are critical for the success of our men's and women's national teams. And so we'll be designing our sporting structure to reflect those realities and the fact that we are in a materially different position than we were, a handful of years ago, which is really exciting.
Now, lastly, we'll go back to the World Cup if we can, just to end the interview here. Besides the team's performance on the pitch this summer, how important is a successful tournament here in the US for US Soccer?
Well, when you think about 94, then you think about the Atlanta Olympics in 96 and the Women's World Cup in 99. That was a magical 5 years that ushered in soccer in this country as we know it. And now we're starting 26, LA 28, and hopefully the Women's World Cup in 2031. And this is an opportunity to catalyze what soccer is for generations and generations to come, to where soccer is the #1 played sport in every community, to where our teams are expected medal winners going into every major competition, and where we as soccer fans in this country get to live out all of our dreams around what soccer can be in this country. So we're incredibly excited about this summer and can't wait for it to get going.
JT, thank you so much for being with us. We wish you all the best of luck this summer and beyond for US Soccer.
Thanks so much.
And don't forget, this is how things look for the US. That game getting underway on Friday against Paraguay to open things up. Then they will move on to Seattle to take on Australia on June 19th. And to round out the group, it's Turkey back in California, June 25th for that game. Frank Leboeuf joining us just in time to talk about what it's like to be a host nation for the World Cup and the importance of putting on a good show for the fans, Frank.
It's a great thing. You want to make sure you want to see all the population proud of yourself, and so you want to work hard. The pressure is high, but the motivation is higher, I think, and always puts you in a different planet, I would say, and you want to make sure that the population will follow you. We've been criticized a lot before the World Cup. And rightly so, I would say, because we didn't have good results and good way of playing. But as we started the tournament, everything changed, and winning games after game put the population behind us, supporting us, and that was a great feeling and the best feeling in the world. And when you win the World Cup at home against Brazil at the end of the competition is the icing on the cake. So I wish to the USA national team to do the best, to be out of their control zone, I would say, and try everything to make sure they're going to win games and the population is going to follow them. It's a hard task because we all know that, and we don't think that the American national team is going to win the World Cup, but miracle can happen. And I wish them to go find that competition, because that will be great for the country.
Whose idea was this segment? Frank's?
Frank's, yeah. He put all the work in, contacted his friends at US Soccer.
He just wanted to shoehorn in that World Cup win in France.
Did he win the World Cup, Frank?
Apparently so.
Yeah, he's very humble about it, though. Doesn't like to talk about it.
Well, there is a pressure. There must have been an enormous pressure on Frank's team because of the expectations, because of how many good players they had, and it was in France. We didn't have the same, but if you remember the Euros in England, European Championships in '96, which we played in for Scotland, so it was basically like a home tournament, being the near neighbours. So you just have more supporters there, you have more expectation, you have more eyes on you, and France had that in bundles. I think it's maybe less so for the US a little bit because it's such a big country, and obviously it's not the #1 sport, but there's still going to be an unbelievable amount of pressure on the players. And it's not an easy group. It's not an easy group they're in. It's not just to turn up, be blasé, and get out the group. So they have to make sure they are on their mettle, they're on their toes. I do expect them to get out the group stages, particularly with the third place team going through. But there's no room for any slackness. Being
at home is the biggest chance you ever have of doing well in the World Cup. The history will tell you. The only tournament that England have won was in 1966 on home soil, and when they played in the European Championships twice, they got to the final and the semi-final. And in France, it was their first win in the World Cup. It was on home soil. Lots of teams. Argentina in '78 on home soil. So this is the best chance the United States will have of doing really well in the tournament.
But for me, sorry, Shat, but for me as well, I mean, it's really sort of a throwaway comment, this, but I always wanted to play World Cups, and France is obviously a near European neighbour for the UK and for Scotland, but I always wanted to play World Cups in iconic places. If I was an American player for the US men's national team, I think I want to play a World Cup maybe in Brazil or Argentina. Or somewhere like that. So it's probably a little different. Maybe there's a bit more of a home field advantage, possibly. But certainly from my point of view, if you said to me, there's going to be a World Cup in Scotland, which there wouldn't be because it's not big enough, would you rather have that, or would you rather go and play a World Cup in an iconic nation? I think I'd certainly rather have that.
But Trinidad, what success, though? What is it? He didn't really specifically answer it.
For me, I think if the US gets to the quarterfinal, that's a successful tournament for them. I think for a large percentage of the soccer supporting public here in the United States, they're expecting semi-final at the very least. And
Well, that's just.
let me also, to our previous point, I specifically say soccer supporting public because I don't feel the parallel between the pressures of being a host nation for the US are anything like they were for France in '98 or England in the Euros. We leave this compound and we have no idea that a World Cup is about to kick off in a few days. The vast majority of this country.
Well, we've got flags up at our house.
Well, I'll have to drive by your house.
Well, not me, but somebody else in the.
Otherwise, my drive home, I do not see a single flag on our house.
Well, in your Maserati, you're going so quick, you don't see any of them, do you?
Anybody's car. There is just not the feel that you get anywhere else in
Well, that's because it's such because it's such a large country,
Granted,
such an expansive country.
But
that
a
is different.
huge majority of the population of this country have no idea that the World Cup is going on. And which is why I will always say to the soccer supporting public here in the US, because that's a minority and it means an awful lot to them, but outside of that, it's a little more than a nuisance
Do you
for
think
everybody else.
you think there's a hope
To-
they get
to
the
that point.
Go on, Frank. Go on, Frank.
To that point, to compare large countries with other large countries. Imagine you have a World Cup in Brazil. Every single people living in Brazil will have known that the World Cup will stand in their country. And that would be the same for Mexico. That's a different culture. And I agree with Shaka. Maybe there is a work to do, but baseball, American football and basketball are ahead of soccer. And this is where they have to work on to make sure that soccer can reach a certain level.
Well, that's the fight, though. That's the fight. It's always happening here in the United States. And we could sit here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and other networks could do the same, and we could tell everybody that the sun shines out of this US team's backside. We could. But it isn't going to change the narrative. The only thing that's going to change the narrative here and the exposure is by this US team busting a bubble and going to a place they've never been before, with excitement and with guile and with entertainment. And that's what that drive home midway through the tournament, you'll see a change. And that's the only thing that we can all talk. And people involved in US soccer, they can all talk. Everybody, most of us, we all talk a great game sometimes. The only way that narrative changes in selling the game, this side of the pond in such a vast country, is to get the people from behind the people that are not, the TV's on in the background, but they're not really interested. They know there's a game of soccer going on, but it's by the by. They're looking forward to the start of the NFL season or the NBA, whatever it is, until this US team, and it is possible, I think it's unlikely, but it entertains, it's successful, and it shows that it has a real chance to get into the quarters, which I agree with. I think that'd be a good tournament. But if it somehow goes beyond that, that's what changes people's interest and perception of this sport in this country.